Testing. Oh, here we go. Alright, sweet. We are good. Welcome into our 4th and 1 playoff preview show. I got the matchups right here. We got the 6-seed Jets versus the 3-seed Broncos. The 5-seed Falcons versus the 4-seed 49ers. 5-seed Texans versus the 4-seed Bengals. And the 6-seed Panthers versus the 3-seed Minnesota Vikings. I'll get into my actual predictions later. I'm just going to talk about kind of the picture overall and it's kind of everything of the such. Let me go ahead and post the link here. Do. Alright, so just kind of want to get into the awards quick. I think that's, yeah, it's stats. So, MVP was Will Redding for the second straight year. Most valuable cheese. Tevin Pitts, a defensive end, was actually number 2. Jawan Pass, Deshaun Watson, Zach Cunningham. Texans had 3 of the top 5. That's pretty impressive. And, you know, you got Andrew Luck, Von Miller, Dak Prescott, Brett Hundley. Teddy Bridgewater somehow was number 10. It's really interesting. Coach of the Year was Bob Stoops from the New Orleans Saints, Jags, you know, Patriots, Texans, you know, all the top rosters here. For AFC, very Patriot-Texan dominated. You know, Patriot, Texan, Chief, Bronco, Patriot, Jag, and then here we go, Patriot, Jag, Texan, Patriot, Bronco. So, you know, you basically got 4 teams up there, and then the Chiefs squeak in. But got a healthy mix here. Offensive Player of the Year, you know, not as many Texans up top, but you got the top 2 Defensive Player of the Years in the Houston Texans. NFC-wise, I haven't even looked at these. You got Jesus Brandon. Oh, geez. Emmett's going to have a field day with that. You got Julio, Jesus Brandon. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Ashley Campbell, with all of his struggles, actually pulling out Rookie of the Year. It's pretty impressive. Desmond Poole, Defensive Rookie of the Year. Dak Prescott, Devontae Freeman. This was a weird year for running backs. Especially you got a 4-12 running back up there. Julio, 1 best receiver. Top 4 are all Cowboys. And then their 5th one is down there at rank 7. Brandon Graham, best D-line. It's pretty impressive. Jesus Brandon got best linebacker. Best DB went to Budda Baker over any of the Cowboys DBs. Only 1 Cowboy DB up there. Wow. Best kicker, I mean, Jason Myers, oh well. So, overall, good mix. It was mainly the Texan, Patriot, Cowboy show. But, you know, beggars can't be choosers. Kind of looking at the stats. Kind of brushing over all this stuff. Will Redding led the league in passing yards with almost 5,500. You know, this year, and we normally have 4, sometimes 5 guys over 5,000 yards. There are only 2 this year. Now, a lot of guys hit 4,000, but only 2 hit 5,000. Look at Mahomes. What really separated these guys is the 44 picks versus 16. I mean, 80 passer rating versus 133. Will Redding led the league in touchdowns by 3. Watson actually came pretty close. But what separated these guys from MVP consideration is Will Redding had half as many interceptions and had about a 13 higher completion percentage. Overall, in terms of who threw the least amount of picks, it was Will Redding, but I kind of shit the bed there towards the end of the season. Yeah, Dak Prescott was probably the most efficient. I mean, his completion percentage is a little bit lower than Redding's, but, you know, single-digit turnovers. Jared Goff was 2. Charles Laerla, you know, Sean Barry stepped up fairly well. Big Ben, Andrew Luck. You know, some really good guys out there. Now, guys who threw the most picks. Mahomes, Carr. I mean, Carr spent most of his time with the Raiders, so guessing about 27 to 30 of them were from the Raiders. So Mark did a good job of kind of leveling out that statistic. Kirk Cousins, Mariota, Watson. Interceptions are generally high, but not too bad. I mean, Ashley Campbell probably is going to be the quarterback for the rookie All-Pro team. Actually had not too bad of a year. After all his struggles, turned out to be solid. Rushing, now here's where we get the top running back had 1,400 yards. The next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys were within like 100 yards of each other. This is probably the worst year rushing-wise I've ever seen. So it's just, it's the way Madden is. Passing is easier, and it's worth more, especially with how broken defense is. Why run it for 3 yards, 4 yards, 20 times when you can pass it 25 and get 15, 20 yards a pop? So, yeah. Just food for thought. I'm a little disappointed about the running game, especially you look at the touchdowns. Normally you got a guy with about 20, you got a bunch. I mean, there's some guys with touchdowns, but yards, not so much. Receiving, you got Julio leading the league in all 3 categories. I'm pretty sure for the 3rd straight year, if not 3 times in 4 years. Cooks actually had more stuff than Sutton. It's pretty impressive. Hopkins must have had a pretty good year. I don't know. Weezy's just spreading that ball a little bit more. Gronk, Kelsey about the same. That'll be a tough one for the All-Pro decision. Even in practically everything might come down to record. I don't know. But blocking, just wanted to see who let up the most sacks. Shocker, a Raider. Doesn't surprise me. Now, Quan Alexander led the league in tackles, which I liked, but one thing I really liked here was Hassan Reddick with 133 and Dan Buchanan with 128. Both his middle linebackers got a combined 250 tackles. That's pretty impressive. 156, 157. Sack-wise, Tevin Pitts nearly had 40. If you take his outlier stats out, year one, for those of you who are going to be watching that were not here to see year one stats, I think the top 5, 6 guys had 28, 29, 30 sacks. They were all breaking, if not close to breaking that record. So to only have 2 guys essentially break that and the rest being up here, pretty good. I test that to the slider change that we did. So I'm happy with the results of that. But anyways, Tevin Pitts up there. Brandon Graham had a solid year. Vic Beasley, Solomon Thomas. Leonard Williams had Kia had 2 guys that did pretty good. That's pretty solid for him. Just overall a good balance. Picks. Wheezy had his guy lead the league. See, now Wheezy right here, I can't see you on this screen, so that's why I didn't include you here if you're watching. You go to AFC, boom, there he is. He's got 23 picks. For some reason, I can't see Zach Cunningham when I go to the NFL. But Malcolm Butler led all DBs in picks with 16. He also had, I think, 3 or 4, 5 defensive touchdowns. I think that led the lead. Now, let me check Wheezy. Zach Cunningham led the league in defensive touchdowns. Well, never mind. Anyways, Butler had a great year. So did Shaq Thompson. 8 sacks, 7 picks, 91 tackles. Who led the league in forced fumbles? I always like to see who can hit stick cheese the most. Josh Jones. Okay, and Brian Dawkins. All right, Bobby. I see what you got over there with your switch and flick cheese. And then, what are we in? Kicking? I don't care about kicking. Or returning. But, yeah, it's essentially what we got for seasons, stats, and awards. Overall, it was a pretty solid season. A lot of competition in certain aspects of the game. Hey Nick, how you doing? See you joining and watching here. Overall, I think it was a lot of fun. We actually had, in the AFC, the last 3 weeks, there was about 4 teams truly in the mix for the 6th seed. In the NFC, there was actually some competition, up until the last 2 weeks. And then the AFC, it came down to truly Week 17. Jets, if they win, they're in. If they lose, they're out. They won and they're in. So, updating the history spreadsheet. Nice. So, just kind of looking at overall standings. Lions, most of these teams at the bottom here are the CPU teams. CPU Lions 1-15, CPU Rams 2-14, CPU Ravens, and CPU Chargers. So, the worst user this season, our boy, the Oakland Raiders, Mr. Rager Brennan Wonka. Gonna lock up what? He's got the Rams first round pick and his. So that's 2 of the top 3 or 4 picks. 2 of the top 3. So he's got pick 2 and 3. So, looking out, you got, some familiar faces down here. Redskins, Bears, Titans. Got some good stuff down here. Browns just didn't play much this year because he only had... he didn't have any division opponents in his division, users, for about 5 weeks, so he just didn't play the rest of the year. So, I don't know, whatever. RP things. We go into the playoffs. The Bengals got in at 9-7, winning that shit show division. Vikings got in their division. Broncos, 49ers. This is what I just always love seeing. You see all these division winners here, and then you go to the division with a couple powerhouses. Falcons at 12-4, Panthers at 13. Oh, also the Panthers weren't the 5th seed; they're the 6th seed. Just going back on that. Texans there. You got the 1 seeds, the Patriots and Saints. Oh, wow. Saints got the 1 seed over the Cowboys. Huh. Didn't even know that. Didn't even realize it. That's interesting. Cowboys, Texans round out the bye. So, all your byes got 14-2. Kind of looking at the AFC playoff picture where you can just see it more clear here. And we'll look at the NFC quick, just so you can see it. Top 6 teams all made it in the NFC. AFC, the Bills missed out. At 11-5, missed the playoffs. Yikes. Well, Nick, you're going to be a little mad at that. Tooting your horn for the little playoff reformat. Led the league in scoring was the Patriots at 606. I got to see if that's an NFL record. That's got to be up there. Fewest points allowed was the Cowboys at 224 points. For me, scoring 606 points, I almost allowed 400 points. So that's good for... Yeah, I'm right around dead even in the pack. Not a good defense. That's why I had to score. I have to score basically 40 points. Otherwise, I'm not winning. So, wanted to get into one other thing here. Do not remember what it was. Well, I guess then let's get into the playoffs. So your first matchup here, we have the Jets versus the... Oh, I don't want to force anybody's win. You got the Jets versus the Broncos. So last matchup, the Broncos won, I believe, 19-16 off a last-second field goal, if I recall. I know the Broncos won. I don't remember necessarily how, if the Jets were driving and didn't get it, or if the Broncos drove down. But anyways, the Broncos won by 3, and I was going back and forth. Key is the 2-time defending champs. Is going for the 3-peat this year. Broncos haven't made the playoffs in a year, I think, maybe 2. So it's one of those do you want the experience, or do you want probably the better roster? And what comes down to it is Kia's quarterback, Charles Laierla, is out for the playoffs. So I'm going to be rolling with the Broncos. I have the Broncos winning 27-21. Jets are in perfect position, but Ryan Tannehill, don't know if he can make all the throws. Tannehill played really good against me week 17. Kind of shut her down a bit, didn't throw a ton at him. But when playing from a lead, and you can control the clock, ground and pound, milk the clock and all that, he should be fine. But if he's ever down having to actually drive and force passes into, tight situations, I don't think he can do it. So I'm going to roll with the Broncos in this game. 27-21. Next, we got the Falcons at 49ers. This is a situation similar to the top, but except everything should lean Falcons. Falcons have the significantly better roster. They have the better quarterback. The overall better user this season, as Playa has a rookie quarterback. They're even user skill, but with the team, Mad's better this season. That being said, Matt Ryan's out, and I didn't even look at who his quarterback is, so let's go and take a peek at his quarterback. Matt Ryan is hurt, and then that leaves the moment of truth. Houston Quarshie. Oh, that's going to be a rough one. Wow. All right, so this will make it pretty easy. I'm going to take the San Francisco 49ers 30-17. I think that even with a slightly worse roster, that Play is going to get the edge here, get a fairly comfortable win, simply because I don't know anybody that can win with that shitty of a quarterback. If Matt does it, this is truly an upset of an upset. Falcons are favored. Now the injury 49ers are favored, so Matt's going to be an underdog for one of the first times in the playoffs now. So next we got the Texans at Bengals. They played earlier in the year, and Wheezy won 38-14, I think. Got, I'm sure, a few picks, 3-4 picks off the Bengals. Rob, I was in another league with him. I know he's a really good user. He's, probably in this league a top 10 user. But he hasn't had that roster enough to kind of build it and mold it how he wants. So he's kind of playing with a team that's not built up the same way as Wheezy's Texans or, some of these top users who've been here all cycle. So I'm going to roll with the Texans, 37-21. Fairly comfortable win for the Texans as well. I just think looking at it that, Wheezy's got a really good user defense, really great defense. And Deshaun Watson, he's got playmakers on the perimeter. So just a recipe that I don't think Rob can defend this season, maybe next season. Now, with this one here, our good boy Tony has to take a leave of absence for just a little bit here. Can't play this game. Doesn't matter whether he played or not. Panthers were going to win. Since it's versus the, if it was versus the user, my prediction would probably be somewhere along the lines of like 28-17, 28-10, 28-13, right around there. Now with CPU, could be anywhere from 28-27 all the way to 48-6. It's a win, but depending the score, all kind of matters on how much cheese the CPU throws at it. So now looking at the next matchups, I'm just kind of writing this down here so I got it all, mapped out, because I forgot that Dallas didn't get the number 1 seed. That would then put the Broncos versus the Jaguars, and then the Texans versus the Patriots in the AFC. Then in the NFC, that would pin the Panthers versus the Saints, and then the Cowboys versus the 49ers. So out of that there, in the divisional round, I guess we can kind of switch sides here. So in the first matchup, New England versus Houston. I'm biased, so I'm probably the worst person to ask this. I think I would win. Wheezy, if you ask him, I'm sure he thinks he would win. We played earlier this year. He threw, I think, 5 or 6 picks versus me. I played a really good game. He struggled a little bit. So I'll take me just because of our history. He hasn't beaten me in this league yet this cycle. But in our other league we played, I haven't beaten him yet. He's 1-0 versus me there. So, we both go back and forth. HPL last year, he beat me probably 4 games out of 6. So even there, just going to go with our track record this Madden. The 3 times we've played, I've gotten him. So I'm going to go with that, but I could easily lose. It's one of those games where it's a 50-50 shot. Pick whoever you want. Next one, Jaguars versus the Broncos. I'll take the Jaguars in that game, about like 38-10, 38-17. I just think he's going to be too much for Bobby to handle. And so, yeah, that's what I got there, Jaguars. especially now that they actually have a quarterback. When Shokan had him and won that championship, it was Bortles, it was Mike Glennon, it was pretty shit quarterbacks carrying, kind of running the show while the defense carried them. Now that they have a really good quarterback, they can actually, hit their targets and actually have a formidable offense. The NFC side, you got the first seed Saints versus the 5 seed Panthers. I'm actually going to roll in the upset. I'm going to roll the Panthers in this one. I'm going to roll them 24. Now I'm going to go 28 to 24. 28-24 Panthers. I just think Schley has got his mojo this year. He's rolling 13-3. It's his best record this cycle. His team just seems to be clicking at the right time. So I'm going to roll with the hot hand. Next one, we got Dallas versus San Francisco. I'm taking Dallas. Their team is just so good, roster-wise. To that secondary, the O-line, the pass rush, quarterback. It's all good. The weapons don't even matter. He's built this team. Elite defense, kept the elite O-line that the Cowboys had, built an elite quarterback. Weapons don't matter behind that line, especially when they're playing with that lead. They don't need to throw a ton because their defense, it is so tough to move the ball and even score on them. So that's what I'm going with there. I go Cowboys, 49ers. I'm going to go 26, probably 20. So really close, tough fighting game. So then that would leave, now in the AFC Championship game, Patriots, Jags. I'm going to go with the Jags, even though I'm the Patriots. I can't beat the Jags. I could hardly beat them last year in HPL. Haven't beat them yet here. I'm 0-3 versus whoever the Jags are in this league. They've bounced me out of the playoffs twice. Lost the one regular season matchup. So I'm going to roll with the Jags. Probably like 38-17 because I just collapse against the Jags and they just blow me out. So that's what I'm going, Jags. So next one, Panthers versus Cowboys. I'm going with Schley. I'm going to go with the Panthers. I think this is his year to get in the Super Bowl. I got them winning. I got them winning 27-18, 27-19, right around there. A little bit of more of an expanded game. I can just see where he has a good defense, Emmett has a good defense, Schley's got a slightly better offense. So that's what I'm rolling with here. Now the Super Bowl, my prediction for the Super Bowl, Jags versus Panthers. Okay, so let's write it. Jags versus Panthers. Book it. I have the Jaguars winning the Super Bowl by a score of 38-35 in overtime. Book it. That's what I got. I'm even going to write it down here. Jags over the Cardinals, Panthers, 38-35. So overall, I think we're in for a really fun and exciting playoff race. All these users are in the top. If you had to make a top 10 list, most of them except maybe the Vikings are going to be in that list. And if you go, these are all the top half members. These are guys that when you play them, you get annoyed because it's going to be a tough-ass game. So we're going to have a really fun playoff cycle. I'll probably do a re-up my prediction based on what happens after every advance, as long as I have time for it. So that's all we got. Jags over the Panthers for my Super Bowl prediction. All right.